And, for me, it was thinking about the best moments of my life. It always came back to some combination of food and wine and travel and discovery. For other people, it's something different. So I think taking the time to have those conversations with yourself and, be objective about your strengths and your weaknesses and your likes and your dislikes, and then talking to those people that, kind of sit at your table of advisors and sharing those conversations, getting their feedback.
Welcome to They're Not Like Us, the podcast where bold ideas and inspiring stories come to life. I'm your host, Aaron, here to challenge the norms and ignite your potential. If you're ready to level up, don't forget to subscribe and join the movement. Now, let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to They're Not Like Us. I'm your host, Aaron, and today I'm joined by Damon Rocky. Welcome to the show, Damon.
Great to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Can you tell people a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so I live in the United States in Atlanta, Georgia, so southeastern United States, and recently launched a wine-centric hospitality concept called Bottle Bank here in Atlanta. So we really focus on kind of delivering experiences focused on wine and kind of the connectivity and the community that wine provides. And it was kind of a detour for me. Prior to that, I was more of a corporate guy, grew up in a Fortune 100 company and was running distribution on the financial services side of things for a insurance and investment company. And then was kind of restless and a little bored and a little stagnant, and decided to, kind of switch gears and chase a passion and get into the hospitality industry. So that's really kind of the quick synopsis.
Yeah, it's a bit of a big switch up, right? If you're switching from financial services over to kind of, would you class yourself as hospitality solely, or would it be like wine and hospitality?
Well, I think they kind of go hand in hand. So we have a food and beverage component. Again, we are kind of focused on wine. So is open to the public, but also has a optional membership program. So as you know, from being in the UK, private clubs are, kind of a big deal and have been for hundreds of years over there. And they're kind of having their moment here in the United States, and there's several here in Atlanta. So rather than be exclusively for members only, again, we wanted to make wine available to everybody and allow them to experiencing it and discover it. For those that kind of wanted more of an elevated experience, give them an optional membership program. So we have cheeses and charcuteries and chocolates and desserts, and we have an executive chef in-house that can curate private dining experiences for our members, and they have the ability to store their wine on premises and spend time in our lounge and drink their wine, hang out in our tasting rooms and sit down with chef and, again, customize a private dining experience to pair with their wines, and wine dinners and wine tastings and wine clubs and cheese clubs. And again, just kind of everything that goes along with it. So it's a lot of fun.
Sounds right up my street, that, to be fair. Why the big switch then? Because it's a bit of a switch, isn't it, from financial services into that kind of world? So why the big switch?
Yeah, so as I said, I was enjoying a very fruitful career with the same company for about 15 years, and was grateful for where I was professionally, but at the same time had, I think, in many ways just kind of outgrown it and was kind of in cruise control, and had always justified my restlessness by just thinking, the ends kind of justify the means. I'm kind of winning at the game of life and I'm not miserable, so I'll just kind of keep plugging away. And COVID happens and the world changes, and here it was kind of the fall of 2020, and the company underwent some very significant changes in their distribution, and territories were eliminated and territories were consolidated, and I ended up not having a seat at the table. So at that point, I realized that, I was 45 years old and I didn't have really any wife and any kids and any responsibilities. And I literally could do anything I wanted to do anywhere in the world. And most people never get that opportunity, and even fewer get it in the prime of their life. So I looked at that as a tremendous opportunity and tried to be very thoughtful about what I wanted to do going forward. And as I was doing that self-reflecting, Aaron, I kind of remembered back a few years prior when I turned 40, I kind of, again, went through that self-reflection period in my life and said, I'm kind of halfway done. How am I doing? Am I happy? And am I making a difference? And am I living up to my potential? And what do I want for the second half of my life? What's really important at this point? And what I realized for me is that the answer was remarkably simple, and that boiled down to I really wanted to drink some great wine. I wanted to eat great food. I wanted to travel to amazing places and stay in beautiful hotels. And I wanted to do all those things with people that I loved and cared about, who loved and cared about me. Because as I thought about it, the very best moments of my life were always centered around some combination of those things. And that's when I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create an environment and I'm going to create an experience where like-minded individuals can get together and drink great wine and eat great food and have amazing conversations and connect in a very real, very intimate level. And I just thought, that's a pretty fun way to spend the rest of my life. So that's kind of that was the genesis and the spirit of the idea.
I love that. And ultimately, I think people can learn a lot from that, from kind of creating that life that you want to live, right? Because ultimately, a lot of us end up in jobs that we don't particularly enjoy. Day after day, going to work thinking this is what we have to do. We have options. We can go and create the life that we want. We don't have to follow that traditional path all the time.
Well, I agree. And I think, you know, life's a lot about perspective. And even if someone's in a career or on a path where they're not completely fulfilled, I think it's sometimes human nature to focus on, what's negative versus what's positive. And so either change direction professionally to find something that's more fulfilling, or look at the other aspects of your life and what fulfills you in a positive way and realize that what you're doing professionally, if it allows for that or it supports that, then what you're doing professionally isn't as important as you think it might be. Life's all about balance and perspective. So I think maybe, looking at it a little bit differently at times, I think can be pretty helpful as well. That's been my experience.
Yeah, I just never bought into this whole, where we just work a job that we hate. We spend, I think, throughout a career, something ridiculous like the amount of hours that we spend at work. So if you're going to be
For sure.
miserable that entire time through your life, just so what you can enjoy the last little bit when you retire, that's no way to live, if you ask me. And I've
I
always
completely
hated that
agree.
concept.
I agree. And I think generally speaking, Europeans do a better job of that than Americans. You guys take holiday and you take it for an extended amount of time. And, a lot of Americans just grind, 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 either out of necessity or out of habit or whatever the case may be. I think, especially post COVID, I've had a lot of conversations with people that I think there's been a fundamental shift in how people prioritize different aspects of their lives. And I think, even in hospitality, when you look at still after 4 or 5 years, how expensive hotels are, how expensive airline tickets are, how expensive, fine dining is, people are spending money on experiences rather than things. Spending time with the people that you love and care about and making those memories and keeping that perspective and that connectivity, I think is a lot more important to people now than it was when we didn't have that, because ultimately, really, only people can make people happy. So it's been interesting to kind of observe that and be a part of that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's helped the older generations, at least, that appreciated it, who lived before it and then lived through it and had that. The ones I worry about are the ones that kind of just finished kind of maybe school or university and then straight into that COVID period and kind of almost adopted that kind of isolation, and that's kind of how they live. And they're the ones that concern me, I suppose.
I think that's a very valid, very intelligent observation. I think you pile on to that, social media and cell phones and iPads, and it's so easy to kind of be in this bubble of self-containment. And I agree with you. I don't think it's healthy, and I think it's important to get out there and talk to people and have conversations and learn things and discover things. And to me, it's a much healthier, more fulfilling way to live. So I'm with you on that. I hope at some point those folks discover that and incorporate more of that into their lives.
Yeah, and I think that's why what you're doing is so important as well, because actually it gives a bit of structure to that, and because we can all go out in the world and be like, oh, what should I do? Where should I go? What should what? How do I meet people and stuff like that? Especially if you've not been good at it, you've grown up, you've been glued to your phone your entire time, or on a console in your bedroom, not really going out doing stuff interactive with people. So the kind of clubs and organized events where you can meet people and experience new things and have shared interests and stuff like that are so valuable and important. And that might be part of the reason why it's on the rise, really.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Completely agree with you.
Yeah. Bottle bank, it's a bit of a unique concept to me. I've not been to anything similar, to be fair, and I'm quite interested in wine. I don't drink as much of it as I used to, but I'm quite interested in wine. I like a bit of wine. So how did you kind of evolve it and get it to where it is? Did it just kind of jump straight into this version of it now, or do you kind of develop it over time?
It's kind of interesting. So again, when I was in the financial services world, I had an advisory practice where I would sit down with people and help them with their financial plans. And I kind of built a niche in working with restaurateurs and chefs and managers of various restaurants, and in working with those folks and getting into their finances, not only personally, but also, on a business level. I knew very quickly that the restaurant business in its traditional form was a very difficult business. It's very volatile. It's very low margin. It's long hours. And it was, it's a fun business. It's a sexy business, but it's not nearly as profitable as most people think it is. So when I thought about hospitality, it was actually wine storage that initially piqued my interest. And as I was researching wine storage facilities literally all over the world, what shocked me was that every wine storage facility that I looked at was just a basic utilitarian storage solution. It was a warehouse at 55 degrees where people would stick excess capacity outside of their wine cellars at home or their wine fridges or their coolers or whatever. And what blew me away was there was nothing experiential associated with it. And as someone that loves wine and has collected wine for several years, I know that the only thing really that wine lovers love more than buying wine is drinking it with other people who enjoy wine. I kind of said, what if we created this environment where we had the ability to store wine, but more importantly, we created this experiential element where people have the ability to enjoy the wine and, enjoy everything that wine represents. And so then we just kind of evolved from there, and, things that enhance the wine drinking experience like cheeses and charcuterie and chocolates and desserts. And, those happen to be very high margin items when it comes to food and beverage. And then, private dining versus a regular restaurant, again, higher margins, more focused, and the recurring revenue of membership fees, gives you again that high margin subscription revenue that so many businesses are desperately seeking. So that's kind of how we put our business hats on and just thought about, how do we diversify the business? How do we create something unique? How do we create multiple streams of high margin revenue? And it just kind of came from there.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because there seems to be a massive shift towards that kind of membership model, that subscription model now that people go to. All businesses kind of push for that, and I kind of understand it. It gives you that baseline to build on from month to month, doesn't it? I suppose, rather
Precisely.
than be up and down so much. But how have you found implementing it? Has it been easy to implement a membership model, or has it been quite difficult?
It's been logistically very difficult. The project's very ambitious, 9,000 square feet. You have a storage component with wine. You have a hospitality component with the lounge. So it's really kind of two businesses together. You have the membership component. You've got liquor licenses. You've got zoning restrictions. You've got architects. You've got interior designers. You've got kitchen consultants. You've got structural engineers, mechanical engineers, contractors, all the resources that have to be brought in to really understand the scope of the project and make sure it all fits and that it all complies with rules and regulations. On top of that, you got to find the right location. It has to be laid out correctly. It has to be the right ingress, egress. Parking's important. Demographics are important. All of this stuff. Financing and the economics of the business are important. So, just finding a space to begin with was difficult. Getting to the finish line and negotiating a lease putting together the team to design and build the project, marketing and public relations and all the stuff that goes along to build the buzz. So there's a lot of components that go into it. I kind of joke with my buddy, it's a real business. I come from financial services, so I deal with accountants and lawyers and insurance people and investment advisors. And in that professional services world that I came from, Aaron, you need a cell phone, a laptop, and a desk, and you're in business. But here it's brick and mortar, and it's employees, and it's inventory, and it's food, and it's wine, and it's all sorts of stuff, the rules, regulations, and it's
Yeah, you've suitably put me off ever trying to do it. Sounds like so much. What's the toughest challenge you faced then? Because there's so much there that it just blows my mind how much you have to deal with.
I think the toughest thing is putting together a great team. And then once you have that team, it's keeping them motivated and keeping them inspired and having them look at the business and care about the business as much as we do. That's always a challenge because no one's ever going to take it as serious as you do. No one's ever going to care about it as much as you do. No one's ever going to have as much on the line from a risk perspective as you do. So trying not to control everything and having the ability to delegate and outsource, but get the deliverables on the level that you need them in the fashion in which you need them, on the timeline in which you need them. I mean, that's a constant struggle. It's push and pull, give and take.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? It's getting people to buy in and be in that kind of. They need to be empowered, don't they? Ultimately, they need to feel empowered. They need to feel like they're making decisions and a big part of what's happening, and that way they'll
That's it.
become invested.
That's
But
it.
is
You have to get people to invest in it emotionally. Not only the employees, but the guests. There has to be some level of personal attachment to the business. And that comes from relationships, that comes from interactions, that comes from experiences, that comes from the sense of discovery and all those things. It's highly curated and very important that people, like you said, are empowered and you take that sense of ownership and that sense of pride. This is where I hang out. This is where I work. All those things are important.
Yeah, and anything with members really, like, and again, that's something that's really big at the minute is that membership and that building a community rather than just having customers, is trying to build that community out. And that is something that's important with them as well, getting them to feel a part of it and not just feel like just another number or, another customer just putting money across the desk.
Precisely.
So how do you balance that? How do you kind of make that work?
Again, I think it's trying to communicate what the goal is. The goal is to take care of people and to provide an environment where people can create memorable experiences. I think also, the important thing is you have to, I think one of the most powerful forces in human dynamics is self-esteem. Anything that makes a person feel good about themselves will be repeated over and over and over again. Giving people that work in the business the opportunity to do something that makes them feel good, they will continue to do that. And so you have to look for opportunities to use the word empowerment, to give people the ability to empower people, to create experiences for other people that makes them feel good about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and where they're doing it. That builds the loyalty and the excitement about the business. So I think that's a key component. I can tell somebody they're doing a great job, and that feels good. But when they do something on their own and they get unsolicited feedback and they get that boost in self-esteem, they will continue to do those things because they feel good about what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Yeah, and I think building relationships is important as well, right? Not only between the staff and the management, but between the staff and the members and the members and each other. That relationship is what keeps bringing people back as well, because we do value human connection so much.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah, it's what's the ideal experience that you want for your guests then when they kind of step into Bottle Bank?
I want them to have a a sense of discovery. I want them to discover new things that they didn't know that they liked, or I want them to have a better understanding of why they like something, because then they can transition that into something else and discover new things. So I like making people say, wow, I didn't know wine could taste like this. I've never had this type of cheese. I didn't know that, pairing this dish with this wine would create this experience. I never knew that when I talked to this winemaker, why the climate is so important and why, Pinot Noir and Burgundy taste different than Pinot Noir from the central coast of Sonoma. Or, just again, every time they walk out a bottle bank, they just say to themselves, man, there's never been a bad night in that place. That is really the goal. And that's what you hope to create for people, are those memories.
Do you do any kind of education around it? Is it like teaching people as well, and wine tasting and stuff like that as well?
For sure. For sure. I think that's a big part of it. When we looked at who would come to a bottle bank, we kind of thought about different segments in the marketplace. And, we said, hey, there's going to be people that are going to come socially. They just want to hang out in a beautiful environment with great energy and have some fun, really could care less about the wine. Then there's a next segment of people that we kind of refer to as aspiring enthusiasts. So they've kind of gotten into this wine thing and they kind of like it and they want to learn more about it. So they enjoy wine tastings. They enjoy wine flights, the ability to drink different wines side by side and talk about the nuances. They love to go to wine dinners and learn about food and wine pairings. They love to meet winemakers. They're just now starting to build a cellar. So they're starting to collect wine. So they're discovering what they like and why they like it, and, different varietals and, different places in the world where those varietals grow and how they compare to other places across the world. And then you've got that last segment, people that are kind of referred to as, collectors or, hardcore wine people that have been in the game for a long time. And again, they like the community that the wine provides. And again, the tastings and the dinners and, hanging out with other like-minded individuals who share a passion at a very high level. So beautiful thing about wine is it's never ending. There's always new places it's growing. There's always new people making it. There's always new styles in which it's made. And, I think people have that natural curiosity and that passion. And so whether you've been drinking it for 20 years or 20 days, there's always something new to learn. So that educational component, that sense of discovery is a big part of it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's something I'd like to do more of. And I don't know what it is about wine and kind of beer and stuff like that and whiskey, but there's something about it that makes you want to learn a bit more about it. I think it might be that you can have such variety, I suppose, of a one drink. You can have such a variety, and it's like kind of understanding why one is good, why one isn't so good. It's just quite intriguing, isn't it?
It is. And again, it's incredibly connective. We talk about it all the time, Aaron, literally for thousands of years since the beginning of time, people have sat around a stump or a campfire or a table over wine or whiskey and have had a conversation and have connected in a very real, very authentic way. And that has never changed and it never will change. Doesn't matter technology and AI and machines and robots and all the things that are coming and have enhanced our lives. When it comes down to it, the need for human connection and interaction is that fundamentally will never change. And wine and whiskey, that's a great conduit to allow those things to happen in a very, very intimate, very authentic way. And that's what makes it special.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think it's so much history there, isn't it? And I think that's why there's all that history behind the, not just wine in general or whiskey in general, but even specific brands and how they've come about and how they've been made and the traditions behind it and all that kind of stuff. And I think
Amazing
that,
stories.
yeah, and I think
And
that,
that's, again, it goes back to people. I mean, people make it's a handmade product. Farmers grow grapes and then winemakers come in and turn it into wine. And it's, I got a friend of mine that says, Jesus turned water into wine. That's a pretty good start. you know? So yeah, it's when I started studying wine on a more academic level, I learned more about geography than I did at any point in time in my formal education because it grows all over the world, and you drink a Riesling from northern Austria and you're like, Austria, where is that? I think it's up there by Switzerland, and are those the Andes Mountains or what, it's just, it's, what mountain range is that again? And it's fascinating. So yeah, I mean, the stories and the people and the history and the geography and the wars that have been fought over it and how it's changed. And I mean, it goes back thousands of years. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing.
It is.
What's your favorite then, Damon? What do you drink? What's your
That's a tough question to answer. I think it depends. Depends on the time of year. Depends on who I'm with. Depends on what I'm doing. It depends on what I'm eating. Um,
right?
I think, yeah, it's just.
Tell me this then. Tell me this then. Right, Christmas is coming up. Christmas Day. What wine are you having at Christmas Day at the table?
So Christmas Day, I will be with my mom and dad and my sister and brother-in-law and my 5-year-old niece, and it will be absolute chaos because my 5-year-old niece is at that perfect age. So it's going to be bananas. So my sister is going to need a drink very early, I can assure you. My parents are not big drinkers, so we'll be having, I think, ham and maybe lasagna. So my sister likes red wine. So my dad likes Merlot. So we'll probably do some Cabernet for my sister, probably some Merlot, maybe from Bordeaux for my dad. And I'll probably sip on a clean, crisp bottle of white and then maybe a lighter red during the day, like a Pinot Noir or something. And then I'll probably have some Cabernet as the night progresses. That's, I think, the playbook for Christmas Day.
Sounds pretty good to me. I don't think I'll be too far off that myself.
There you
I
go. It's
quite
a
like
good one.
that. Yeah, I do quite like that. I'll probably start with a prosecco though. It's just tradition here, so you know.
That's wonderful. Yeah, sparkling wine is something that people should drink more often than they do. They think of sparkling wine for celebration, but talking about what's my favorite, the palate kind of ebbs and flows, and you kind of get into things, and you get tired of things, you discover other things, and you go back to things. Sparkling wine specifically, I've been drinking a ton of champagne, a ton of cava from Spain for the last 18 months, 2 years, year round. I love it. I just absolutely love it. It's so food friendly, lower in alcohol. It's fresh. It's lively. It's bright. It's celebratory. It's a great way to start any day. Churchill, as you know, drank a bottle at breakfast and a bottle at lunch. So, as he said, boys, we're not we're not only fighting for France, we're fighting for champagne. So that's,
Yep. Um, yeah, David, you've got a podcast as well, right?
we do. Yeah. My partner has a podcast called Focus, which talks to various people in the hospitality industry and, talks about, specific aspects and, kind of what their main focus point is on what they do, how it can enhance other hospitality concepts. So it's primarily his podcast, but I kind of guest host with him sometimes. And then we're talking of doing one at Bottle Bank as well. The chefs that come in and the winemakers and the hospitality managers are some pretty interesting people. So we're looking at kicking one off at Bottle Bank as well at some point.
That's cool. How do you find it, like co-hosting a podcast and stuff?
I find it amazing. We talked off camera before. I think, people that have their own podcast are just interesting people. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and for a lot of people, there's not a huge return. They don't get a lot of views. It doesn't go viral. They do it because they have a passion and they like learning and they're curious by nature. And again, one of the things that I really was impressed with when I went on YouTube and looked at several of your episodes and listened to bits and pieces of a lot of different ones was just the variety of guests that you have, interesting subjects and interesting people. If it's personal finance or if it's health and wellness or if it's hospitality or, again, just a variety of people doing really interesting things. So I compliment you on that. And I find it a lot of fun just talking to people and again, kind of connecting and learning something new. I think it's a wonderful platform.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit selfish from me, but I just like to learn loads of different things about different stuff, especially stuff I don't know about. So
Yeah, 100%.
that, yeah, that's why I get all these guests on from different areas and, different experience and different backgrounds, just because it just opens my eyes to so many different things.
I agree. You realize how big the world is, and it's almost like therapy in a way. Again, everybody, as you talk to more people, they inspire you, and hopefully you inspire them, and it's again, it's a great community. It really is.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about myself, just through having conversations with other people, and just sometimes it's not even necessarily in the moment. You have a conversation with somebody, and then they might say something they've not thought about before, or in a way you've not thought about before, and it just kind of plants a seed in your head, and then you go
Sure.
away, and then you kind of think about it, and like kind of develops over time. But I think again we're coming back to that connection, aren't we? That human connection, and being able to share stories and experiences, and just it's so important. I mean, maybe we should have got a wine for this, Damon, shouldn't we? Really, didn't think
Well,
about it.
we absolutely can. I think that's such a powerful statement, Aaron. If you don't mind, I'd love to hear some of the things that you've discovered about yourself through your podcasting. I think that's, again, I always love stories of self reflection and realization. I'd be curious to hear about some of that if you're open to sharing.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is there's been so much, really. I mean, I have people with kind of different viewpoints, or that make me kind of realize. So I've had a few therapists on the show actually. So they've, kind of. I'm willing to be vulnerable, so I open myself up, and I'm willing to have the conversations with people. So I kind of go a bit deeper maybe than some other hosts maybe would.
Sure.
But by doing that, it's kind of helped me understand so for instance, it helped me understand my attachment style when it comes to relationships, and some of the relationship stuff, that, why I'm doing stuff the way I'm doing it. So
Interesting.
why I kind of pull away from people, and why I kind of, when things get difficult, I kind of just shut off and move away. I think they call it stonewalling. So, these are things that I kind of knew I was doing stuff that's not great necessarily, but I didn't understand it, and I didn't understand why, or what the mechanism for that is, and what could have caused that, and how to kind of deal with that.
Sure.
So, and all that's just one very small example, really. But there's been a lot of stuff through. I've learned something in probably every episode, I think, where I can just
So
take something
has
away
that
and implement it in my life.
realization about your relationship style, have you made some changes in relationships since that moment to kind of help with that, or if that's even the right
But I would love to sit here and say, yeah, I've sorted it, fixed it, problem solved.
just like
But
that, man, easy.
what I found is actually it's a work in progress, and it takes time, and it's up and down. Some days I'm better than others, but I'm aware of it. So actually, being aware of it is kind of the first step to
100%.
kind of dealing with it. And it's just one of those, really. It's not something, and I don't expect it to be fixed overnight. And it's the same as anything worth doing takes time, and some things take a lot of time. Especially, I mean, I'm nearly 40 now, so I've only just realised this year. I've been doing this for 39 years now, so I can't just switch it off in an instant. It's something that I need to work on consistently, really, and kind of communicate with myself and with my partner to try and work through that.
That's great. Again, I'm happy to hear that and proud of you for realizing that. And as they say, it's progress, not perfection. So keep working at it, and it's self-awareness is a big thing.
Yeah, it is. It's massive, and I think having uh, having conversations, having people to talk to bounce off, really, it does you a world of good. It enables you to kind of make sense of your thinking and what you're doing, because we do so much on autopilot without actually realizing. Maybe realizing is the wrong word, because I think we all know we do things that maybe we shouldn't do, or that are not kind of not serving us. Then maybe. But I don't think we understand why half the time, or, acknowledge it even. So if we're not
Yeah.
acknowledging it, and we don't kind of trying to understand why, then we'll never get past it.
You had talked about your ability to be vulnerable. That is so difficult for most people. I had a business coach that I worked with years ago in my prior life, and one of the things that she would say to me, that I think I realized instinctively, but never really heard somebody verbalize it, was that, vulnerability is probably the most connective of human emotions. That when you allow yourself to be vulnerable with somebody, everybody can relate to that, and they know how difficult it is, and they know how risky it is. And people really, really connect with that. And having the ability to do that is a very healthy thing. And also, I think allows people to create better, more meaningful relationships in their lives. So, good for you for recognizing that and putting yourself out there. And that takes a lot of courage. And I think that's, I wish more people would be that way.
Yeah, I think that's part of the podcast as well. I'm trying to encourage people to do that, and to
Sure.
encourage people to do it, I need to lead that way, and I need to do it myself. So I can't expect other people to do it if I'm not willing to do it. And I think that happens in all relationships in life. If you kind of put yourself out there, you're willing to be vulnerable and open, and kind of, there's lines and limits. You have to have boundaries, etc. Don't get me wrong, but being vulnerable to allow people in and to show people that actually I'm human, I make mistakes. This is why I do live, because I'll make mistakes. I have made mistakes on live shows. I will make mistakes constantly. But being live, the beauty of it is I can't hide it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Again, it's very authentic.
and I think by doing that, I think it just encourages other people to have the courage to do the same. And I think the more people that do it, the better, if you ask me. And I think it'll just make that human connection better. I think it'll make people more understanding and empathetic of each other. And I think, it'll create, if I can affect one person and one person does it, then it's a success for me. So, but yeah, but because I never used to, I'll be honest, I never used to. It's taken me this long to do it. I used to be quite closed off, or wear that mask and pretend to be something I'm not. I did that for years and years and years, and then it wasn't making me happy. It made me really miserable, to be honest. And now that I'm just being myself unapologetically, I'm actually much happier. I'm living life how I want to live. I'm doing the podcast, which is it's as much for me as for anything else. I'm not really doing it for other people or for money. I'm doing it for myself more so than anything else. And it's kind of changed my outlook on life completely and made it much more positive.
Right. I think that's amazing. And, if you allow yourself to be a more authentic version of yourself, as you said, the people that are in your life at that point, I think again that those relationships are a lot more meaningful because they're seeing you for who you really are and not who they think you are or they want you to be or who you want them to think you are. And so, as you said, just holistically from a fulfillment perspective, I think that's a healthy way to live. So I'm glad you've gotten there personally. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's very similar to you, right? Because you've living life on your own terms now. You've gone away from the financial side of it, where you weren't particularly happy when it joined life, and it's something you said to me at that point when you said we were explaining why you changed tact and went down this route. You could have been really pessimistic at that point and thought, oh, I need to get another job doing this quick. I need, like, this is that's almost your comfort blanket, right? That's what you've been doing for so long, that you could have stayed in that little box that you made for yourself. But it actually takes a lot of courage and optimism to step out and go, no, I'm going to do what I want to do, what I enjoy doing. And and look at it now. Look, you're doing what you want to do. You have a great business, building a community and stuff. So
Thank you.
it's something to be commended, and I think people can learn from that and hopefully do that for themselves as well, and not get stuck in a job that they hate for, I don't know. God, we have to work till we're probably 80 at this rate before you get your pension. You know what I mean? And then
Yes.
by the time you retire, you're too old to do anything or go anywhere or to enjoy your life. And then what's the point?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, man. That's one of the things that always bothered me, that the whole work for retirement. Like, find something you enjoy doing now, and I think that will just change your life.
Yeah, I agree. I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine the other day, and he's kind of at a point of transition in his life and was looking at different things. And, money's important, but I think if you make decisions for the right reasons, then money will take care of itself. You'll be provided for. And again, it takes that leap of faith and it takes that courage. But ultimately, I think it's can be a very, very good thing. So,
Yeah, and
and maybe not. I mean, taking that risk and being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. There's nothing wrong with a good job. There's nothing wrong with a consistent paycheck. And that was one of the things that when I would struggle with that myself, when I was, again, back in my corporate life, I thought about, why do people really work? And what I realized is that, people work really for three reasons. And it's very simple, right? They work to pay their bills. If they're smart, they work to save money for the future. And third, they work to support a great lifestyle, whatever that means to them. And if you're doing those three things, you are winning at the game of life. So nothing wrong with grinding it out, if not having to work on Saturdays and Sundays and being home at 4 o'clock to coach your kids' football team or to have a date night once a week with your partner. I mean, that's a great life. So sacrifices are made over here in order to achieve this over here. Then, the ends justify the means. So there's no right or wrong answer.
yeah,
Just
I agree.
understand what you're getting and what you're sacrificing in exchange for that. And I don't think a lot of people really think about it in terms of that kind of mathematical equation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's about your happiness, right? So the way I look at it is there's the triangle, right? The three prong. So you have your health, your wealth, and your relationships, and there's a balance. You can't have. I don't think there's any way you can have all three being absolutely perfect. You got to get the right balance for you and what works for you and what makes you happy in life, really, and what brings you the most joy, whatever that looks like. And I think that looks different for everybody. And it's not saying, oh, everybody should care about their job and work themselves. You could really enjoy your job, or you could not be miserable in your job. It'd just be something you do you're not particularly bothered about, but actually doing that enables you to look after your health and have great relationships, and actually that makes you really happy. So there's loads of different ways to do it, but
Completely
it's
agree.
finding what works for you.
Yep. 100% right. Such a good
Yeah.
perspective.
And I think what worries me is a lot of people don't actually know what they want because they don't spend
That
any time thinking about it.
that is 100% the truth. 100% the truth.
Yeah, I think if you spend some time looking at yourself, asking yourself some difficult questions, and thinking, what do you actually want from your life, and what do you want to achieve? Sorry, my dog's going a bit nuts out there. Um, yeah, if what you want to achieve, then I think actually then you have kind of almost a north star, if you will, somewhere to kind of aim at, that you can kind of point your life at and make your decisions around. If you don't figure out what you want, you're just going to kind of float through life, and you might end up in a great place. You might end up in a really bad place because you haven't
Right.
really taken any kind of control over it.
I agree. And I think others can help in that process. I know when I was looking at different opportunities and, talking to kind of my inner circle, my best friends that know me really well. And when I was conceptualizing Bottle Bank and kind of trying to figure it out, one of my buddies, I was on the phone, I'll never forget this. He said to me, he just paused and he goes, Damon, he said, your entire life has been about this moment. You just haven't realized it yet. But the things that he and I had experienced over the course of our lifetime together, he knew my strengths and my weaknesses and my passions and my skill sets. And as I was describing what I wanted to create, he just said, man, he said, your whole life has been about this moment. You just haven't realized it yet. And that was such a powerful statement because there was such comfort and such confidence in that because he knows me so well. And your friends aren't going to let you fail. The good ones are going to tell you, this is a horrible idea. You're going to fall flat on your face. You're going to crash and burn. Let me explain to you why. Or they're going to say, hey, this is a tremendous idea. And they're going to give you the courage and they're going to push you off that cliff and you're going to have to jump. And people see things in other people that sometimes they don't see in themselves. So I think, as you said, committing to that process of self-reflection and self-priority and what really makes me happy, and talking to other people about it and getting that feedback, and then finding a way to monetize it, I think can serve a lot of people very well.
Yeah, It's hard though, right? To do it. It's hard to look at yourself, to be
Incredibly
kind of
difficult.
critical, and I think this is why we numb ourselves with social media and other things, because we want to avoid the
Yeah,
harsh
it's
truths.
mindless, right? It's an escape. It's escapism for sure. But you got to
Definitely.
do the work, man. You got to do the work.
Yeah, it's definitely escapism, and you do have to do the work. And I think people are afraid to do it, and I think that's why people end up having midlife crisis, don't they? They end up not doing anything, and then all of a sudden it just dawns on them that they've gone so far down this wrong path that now they just need to turn their life upside down.
It's easy to do. It's easy to be comfortable. That's one of the things that I always said, that if COVID hadn't happened and the company didn't let me go, I probably wouldn't be doing this, if I'm honest with myself, because what that did was that forced me to make a decision that I probably didn't have the courage to make myself, because I was too comfortable. Sometimes God chooses for you.
Yeah, I think I see that, and I'm the same way. Being in a job where you're secure, you're getting money, and whatever else. Even if you're not happy, you take the approach sometimes. Bet the devil you know, and it's comfortable. It's what I know. Is how
Sure.
this is how my life has been, so I know I can handle this. If I take myself out of this or put myself into, especially like entrepreneurship, because there's so many unknowns and variables, and it's difficult, right? So to put yourself in that situation from somewhere we're comfortable, where you know how much money you're going to get, you know what your paycheck's going to be at the end of the month, every month, you can go home, you can just binge eat, watch Netflix, or scroll through TikTok, whatever it is that you do, and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And that's safety, and that's, as humans, we've evolved to seek that safety, because we're just a creature ultimately that wants to survive. So we seek safety whenever we can, and then obviously we kind of conserve and save energy to deal with issues when we have to. But yeah, but I think it's a dangerous game, that comfort.
It is. It is. It goes back to your potential, and are you living up to it, and is living up to it something that's important to you? And again, there's no right or wrong answer, because sacrifices have to be made to live up to your full potential. Sometimes those sacrifices aren't worth it, and I think priorities change. I have, again, friends that are married, that have families and children, and they don't take the risks professionally now that they once did, because the consequence of failure is too great. And that's not, you know, that's not failure in and of itself. That's self-awareness, and that's courageous, and that's putting other people and their well-being ahead of your own. And that's selfless, and that's a beautiful thing. So to your point, it changes over time, and priorities change over time, and your risk tolerance changes over time. And it again goes back to that self-reflection and having that awareness to say, you know what, it's okay that I'm not going to do this, because this is now more important to me. There's a tremendous amount of clarity that comes with those realizations, and that's a very good thing and very healthy.
Damon, I couldn't agree more with that. And ultimately, in those circumstances, people are weighing up the risk, right? They're weighing up the risk of going to do something, and what that could mean to their family, to their children, to other issues. And I think I'm all for that, and I think that is right to do. What concerns me is the people that look at risk. Maybe they don't have all that. They don't have kids, or they don't have the other stuff to worry about. They look at the risk of going to do something, or leaving, getting a new job, or moving to a different city, or starting a business, whatever it may be. But they don't understand that it's actually a risk in not doing anything at all as well, and they don't weigh that part up.
That's
That's what
true.
concerns me.
Regret is one of the worst things. So, and as they say, you regret more the things in life that you don't do than the things that you do. And I think about that often when I'm at a fork in the road trying to make a decision. Always something to consider.
Yeah, and it's like you say, because of that comfort, you don't see it as a risk, because it's one of those slow risks that just eats you over time. Whereas if you go and do something new, or you kind of change your circumstances dramatically, then that's an immediate risk, and then we tend to want to avoid those at all costs, really, and push it. But the way I look at it is, you pay a price, right? So you'll pay a price. You can either pay that price up front, or you'll pay it down the line. If you don't look at your situation and consider what it is that you want from life, and again, I come back to that, having that North Star of what you want to do, what you want to achieve. If you don't have that, then you could end up anywhere. Where are you going?
That's it. Absolutely agree. Well said.
Yeah. Damon, where can people find out a bit more about you or Bottle Bank?
Bottlebank.com is the website. It's got all the information. Bottlebank ATL on Instagram is a lot of updates and fun renderings and stuff there. So yeah, if anybody's out there, give us a buzz. You're in Atlanta, let us know. We'd love to host you. And yeah, we're excited.
Sounds good. Sounds good. When people kind of think about Bottle Bank, right, in years from now, kind of legacy time, what do you hope that people kind of think of first? What do you hope comes to people's minds?
I hope when people reflect on some of the best moments of their lives, if it's a birthday or an anniversary or a guy's night out or a girl's night out or a first date or a first kiss or where they met their partner, I hope Bottle Bank is in some of those thoughts and is part of some of those memories and some of those experiences. Best meal they've ever had, best glass of wine they've ever had, best conversation they've ever had. If we can be a part of enough of those milestones in people's lives, then I think we've done our job.
Yeah, I like that. Do you have like a guest book or like an online guest book maybe or something?
Online guest book, we do not. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Yeah, you're Aaron.
Yeah, I've got an idea. So do you have a physical guest book even? Where people sign,
No.
saying, honestly, I think that would be great if you could do something like that. Whether it be an
That's a
online
very cool idea.
version, whether it be an online version or an attendance one, and you could share some of those experiences, ask them, if it's a book one, then you can ask them to kind of give you permission to share it, or come up with an online one where you can actually share what people are saying, what experiences they've had, all the stories. I know it's almost like a review, but more about the experience, and then you can kind of share stories, and you can build a community that way as well potentially.
That's very cool. That's a great idea. Thank you for that. I like that a lot.
Because I'd be interested as well to see all these people gone there, or I had, like you say, could share some of these stories potentially of had they first kissed there, or did something that's brought them joy and share their anniversary there or something like that, and it could be quite interesting and great to share with the world.
I love it. Great idea.
Now, for people who like you, right, potentially want to follow their passion, but maybe they were in a conventional career and kind of on the fence about it, what advice would you give them?
I think really hammer home kind of the theme that we found ourselves coming back to, that self-reflection, that self-awareness. Take that quiet time to really be thoughtful about what you like. And again, for me, it was thinking about the best moments of my life. It always came back to some combination of food and wine and travel and discovery. For other people, it's something different. So I think taking the time to have those conversations with yourself and be objective about your strengths and your weaknesses and your likes and your dislikes, and then talking to those people that kind of sit at your table of advisors and sharing those conversations, getting their feedback. I think doing those things is going to get you pretty close. So that would be my advice.
Love that, Damon. Really appreciate being on the show. And before I do bring the episode to a close, do you have any kind of final thoughts or messages that you want to share with people?
Drink more wine, have more conversations, be more self-reflective, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable. I'll leave you with that.
Absolutely love that. Damon, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's been an absolute pleasure, Aaron. I wish you all the best, and thanks so much for the opportunity.
No worries. Take care.
All right, man. Cheers.
Thanks again for being part of this journey. Stay tuned. We've got even more great conversations coming your way.